Hurricane Irma, in the power of the completed Christ, we say peace, be still. In the power of the completed Christ, Hurricane Irma, we say peace, be still. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty of the Christian Whistleblower, bringing you the gospel truth and bringing you the gospel truth tonight about the American Book of the Dead. I'm calling it the Western Book of the Dead, with all apologies to the author. And Tamu Ngina was on earlier today live. I hope you caught that. If you didn't, you can go to her channel and subscribe, so you'll know next time she's on live, and you'll be able to go ahead and avail yourself of the great work that she's doing. And also, we'll have the show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern with R. Wayne Steiger, not your normal Sunday morning show. So we're looking forward to that, and really excited about doing that. And after that, I'll probably be heading over to my mother's, because she's going nuts that I'm not there. So, and I am in a mobile home. So common sense says that you might as well go ahead and go over to your mom's, make her happy, and not be in a mobile home. Because, I mean, let's face it, even if the winds are high, mobile homes aren't the greatest place to be. And I'm still not certain that this storm is going to come up to Florida, and we're still telling it, peace, be still, in the power of the created Christ. So and there's still time. So I still believe that we're going to be all right. And important thing about being all right is being all right now, and learning how to be all right when you get out of this portion of the labyrinth. And I think, was it Jim Morrison that said nobody gets out of here alive? And that is true. And I want to move now. We're reading from the American Book of the Dead, which I'm calling the Western Book of the Dead. And we're on the chapter now that is entitled Introduction to the Macro Dimensions of the Labyrinth. Introduction to the macro dimensions of the labyrinth. This should be very, very interesting. I want you to go ahead and like, share, subscribe. I'd like you to tell some other people to like, share, and subscribe. And we look forward to your questions, your comments, and to those of you that feel so motivated to share with financial sponsorship, so we can get this message out to even more people. So here we go with the glasses, and here we go with Introduction to the Macro Dimensions of the Labyrinth. Don't worry, I'm not just going to read this to you, but we'll find some good parts, then we'll talk to each other about them. So, and I do have the chat room up, so I don't know that I can continue and to catch everything, but I'll do my best. All right, so the author also did the illustrations in this book. They're charcoal drawings, and they're quite interesting. So that's a picture of the drawing for this chapter. The sheer ordinariness of an unexpected experience of the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth deceives us into complacent acceptance of events. The unsuspecting voyager is unaware of any transition, and so the Tibetans, Navajo, Micronesians, Benin, and other cultural primitives, but macro-dimensional sophisticates, have trained themselves through visualization to view all dimensions of the labyrinth, including the human dimension, in a supernormal way. Wow, that's fascinating. That is a sentence that is full of good stuff. The sheer ordinariness of an unprepared experience of the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth deceives us into complacent acceptance of events. We become unsuspecting of any transition. So those of us in the West don't get it. You know, we think of ourselves as so advanced, and we think of ourselves as so highly, evolved, and we think of ourselves as so far above all these other poor people that don't have the wisdom and knowledge we do. It's called ethnocentrism, folks, and it's pretty ugly. And when you think about it, the Tibetans, the Tibetans, third world. The Navajo, we conquered them, third world. Micronesia, third world. Benin, third world. We look down upon them. We look down our nose upon them. And that's why we continue to look down our nose upon them life after life after life after life. We are looking down our nose at what we call the third world, the people that have figured it out spiritually. And somewhere they're giggling because they're moving on and escaping the labyrinth. And we are, with our haughty ethnocentric attitude, we are going over and over again, continuing to look down on people that have got it figured out. That is interesting, because we're unaware of any transition, and yet the Tibetans, Navajo, Micronesians, and other cultures such as we would call primitive, because we're so advanced, they've trained themselves through visualization to view all dimensions of the labyrinth, including the human dimension, in a supernormal way. The only visualization we have in the West is the visualization of television. Tell a vision, not discover a vision. You see, the culturally primitive people, those that we identify as culturally primitive, they don't have tell a vision. They got develop a vision. They don't have tell a vision. They have discover a vision. They don't have television. They have see a vision. They don't have television. They've got be a vision. They know how to not just have visions of what they're told to have, tell a vision. They know how to go in and see and create and model and actually visualize the realities of this labyrinth. So while we pat ourselves on the back for our great culture and our tremendous advances in technology, all we're doing is building a better cage for us to continue to inhabit on a repetitive and continual basis, while these folks that we call and identify as primitive are already learning how to escape the labyrinth. And they don't care, because the ones that have seen us laugh at them have already passed on. But how interesting and how ironic and how seemingly fitting it is that those of us that with our ethnocentrism and our superiority in the West are going over and over again. And each time we don't learn, we still look down upon the people that have it figured out. And we're still being captivated by our tell a vision. And who knows what happens in the future when tell a vision is even more interactive. That's why we don't have any visualization. We don't have any meditation. It's something to be said about being in a culture where you don't have a TV that's on with 200 channels 24/7, 365. There's something to be said about being in a culture that doesn't have New from League Project, that doesn't have the internet that you can be on 24/7 like I am too close to being. There's something to be said about a culture that almost demands introspection. And it allows you to see the labyrinth, including this human dimension, in a super normal way. It allows you to understand what's really going on. Without continuous, well-reinforced visualization training, the labyrinthine macro dimensions tend to masquerade as ordinary life. Wow. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. We do not need external psychedelics to have visions. Without continuous, well-reinforced visualization training, the labyrinthine macro dimensions tend to masquerade as ordinary life. Well-reinforced visualization training. I deal with people every day that can't even meditate for 5 seconds because we're so used to this microwave mentality, because we're so used to this American westernized way of life that we can't it's not that we can't, it's that we won't do what we have to do to get ourselves to a place where we can meditate. Now, I'm going to be offering this starting October 1st, how to navigate the afterlife so you can quit worrying about that, and teaching you and training you how to do it here in this life. But unless and until you make a commitment to, number one, getting the training, and number two, doing the training, it won't have any effect for you. So it's going to mean turning off the TV. It's going to mean turning off the iPhone. It's going to mean closing the laptop. It's going to mean turning off the radio. It's going to mean getting into a place of silence and contemplation. Because without it, the labyrinthine microdimensions tend to masquerade as ordinary life. Well, Jeff, how can people not even know that they're dead? And people ask me that with I can hear the skepticism in their voice. What do you mean people don't know they're dead? That's stupid. They don't say that's stupid, but what do you mean, Jeff, that people don't know they're dead? Probably being asked by somebody that won't know they're dead when they are. Because it's designed that way. The matrix is designed to be a matrix. It's designed to be a mind meld. It's designed to be very subtle so you don't understand. And it's designed to keep you on this continually circuitous path. It's designed to make you think it's normal and okay. And I'm not the only one that thinks about that. Obviously, Mr. Gold here says that the labyrinthine microdimensions will masquerade as ordinary life. Guides appear, but we explain them to ourselves as simple changes of light playing tricks on the vision. The sweeping tonal harmonics of macro-dimensional sounds we translate to common, understandable phenomena. Horns of passing traffic, airplanes, music, orchestral, choral, heavy, metallic. I think about Tamu and Gina talking about seeing a blue orb yesterday, day before, whenever it was. They all run together. I think it was yesterday. And we talk about the other day, we were talking about finding the divine in the mundane. We're just not listening, folks. We're so busy doing all we think we got to do that we're missing the subtleties and the messages and the tonalities of the eternal. Without continuous and well-reinforced visualization, these things masquerade as ordinary life. Guides and guideposts, I would say, appear, but we explain them to ourselves as simple changes of light playing tricks on the vision. That wasn't an orb. That wasn't a signpost. That wasn't anything I should pay attention to. I just saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I'm just tired of my vision. The sun was in my eyes. The enlightened individual is the one that not only stops and smells the roses, but stops and considers the rose, looks at the structure of the rose, notices the dew on the rose, notices the insects on the rose, notices the construction of the internal parts of the rose. The little things are the big things. And we miss so many subtleties because we almost have disdain for subtleties anymore these days. Start to listen, start to look. I'm not reading from the book. Start to listen, start to look, start to realize, start to ask, start to wonder. I remember many, many years ago, I was dating this girl who was, to me, she was about half crazy. But this was before I was spiritual. I was just coming out of Christianity, and she was kind of like a hippie. She taught aerobics at a community college in Napa. You don't get much more hippie than that. And I remember a profound lesson she taught me one day. We were driving. I was in Sacramento. We were driving back towards Napa, which is Napa, California. And if you know anything about geography, we were driving towards the sunset. And she says, pull over, pull over, pull over. I'm like, did I get a flat tire or something? But I pull over. She says, just watch. What are you talking about? And for the first time that I could remember, I actually stopped and watched and understood and took in the glory of a sunset. And, over the mountains of coastal California or near coastal California, it's pretty spectacular. And she taught me a lesson to learn taught me a lesson to take the time, taught me a lesson to make the decisions to stop and watch a sunset, stop and watch a bird in flight, stop and listen to a tree, stop and hear the messages coming from the ocean or the wind, and to notice the elementals that are teaching me things that one day I'll need to know. You don't have to listen. You don't have to watch. You don't have to learn. But you'll keep coming back until you do, or until you stop coming back. That might happen. I don't know, but I'm not trying to scare you. The mind transforms labyrinth phenomena into ordinary phenomena of the present consciousness. This is what happens when you don't have your analytical mind tuned in. Not only are you trying to remove all the gaps so your reactive mind doesn't jump up and your fight or flight mind doesn't jump up and take you out of analytical mind, but you need to be an analytical mind not only to have the comforter activation, not only to have the direct connection to the divine database, but also to be able to understand all the labyrinthine phenomena and to recognize it as such. It's another reason why you need to get with me for personal work. Remember that the nature of the phenomenal world, the lower dimensions, is phenomena. All the phenomena of the organic world, the human dimension, as well as the labyrinth with its macro dimensions, are controlled by the being attention, because the higher mind controls itself, unlike the lower mind, which is controlled by the environment. This guy is preaching my message. You are not going to be able to successfully navigate the afterlife unless you get your analytical mind right. And right now, I'm about the only one I know that's doing it. So if you want to call that a plug, call it a plug. Plug this. All the phenomena of the organic world, the human dimension, as well as the labyrinth with its macro dimensions, are controlled by being attention, because higher mind controls itself, unlike lower mind, which is controlled by the environment. But unfortunately, the awareness of the individual generally doesn't include the awareness of or control over the mind. That's because you haven't ever even heard anybody until E.J. Gold and Jeffrey Daugherty said, listen, your mind's broke. You got to fix it. Not only is it going to give you problems in this life, but it's going to prevent you from moving on in the next one. That should put a little perspective on it. How bad do you want to save the money that you would donate to me to go through your analytical mind upgrade? It's up to you. What's it worth to you? What is called the mind in ordinary intercultural transactions of higher ideas is simply the result of the activities of the primary attention of the being, the cosmic nature of which is voidness, which is called in this treatise the essential self, which is one's own, the deepest self existing only temporarily, dependently upon the biological self. Wow. So your attention, the focus of your analytical mind is you. The focus of your analytical mind is you. And because you lack the ability to focus your analytical mind, that's why you feel like your life is out of control or not what you want it to be. It's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's not because you're possessed. It's not because you're stupid. It's because you are living with a broke analytical mind. And it doesn't self-repair. You have to go in with intention, recognize, identify, and repair. And you need assistance to do that. It really can't be done on your own. And that's almost by divine design, I would say, because we need to come to the place where we understand the necessity of dependence upon one another. We really can't make it ourselves. That's why the Christ said, love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two, hang the entirety of all the message of the Christ. Oh, this is so good. This guy, and I didn't know this. I'm reading this for the first time with you. I've been through the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it's like sucking mud through a straw. Don't know why you'd want to, but if you did, it would be like this. This is better. One of the primary problems with an untrained individual who has not inculcated within himself firsthand knowledge of the subtle feelings and sensations of the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth. In other words, a person with a broke analytical mind, which during the lifetime are hidden under the dominant organic feelings, perceptions, and sensations of organic life, aka your reactive mind, your fight or flight mind. To actually notice the non-organic nature of the macro-dimensional environment without dropping into blackout, waking up only after it's over. That's a beautiful description of what happens to your analytical mind. And he's identified something to me that I didn't even see. Many times when your analytical mind begins to see the matrix, like when Neo saw the black cat walk by twice and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What? Deja vu. When you're seeing the cracks in the matrix, when you're seeing the construction of the labyrinth, when your analytical mind sees it, your reactive mind will want to jump up and say, oh, no, that's bad. Just deja vu. You're identifying things, but your reactive mind's jumping up saying, ah, it's nothing. Trick of the light. Pay no attention to it. Nothing to see here. And that's another reason why you got to fix it, because it actually not only prevents you from having access to your full analytical mind, to the comforter activation, to the divine database, but it will also prevent you from seeing the labyrinth. And the labyrinth really is the matrix. The labyrinth is a better word. It will prevent you from seeing the labyrinth and prevent you from learning the knowledge you need to know to exit the labyrinth after this life. And you may wake up only after it's over, and that's too late. A normal human primate, given the usual education and routinized life experience, just doesn't have the slightest idea of what's going on, where she is, what's happening around her, his feelings and sensing, his sensations, the events proceeding all around them, not even 1/1,000,000th of it. We can't expect to notice that anything is different in the macro dimensions of the labyrinth when the only difference is the quality of the experience and not the imagery. You got to know how to read between the lines of the labyrinth. You've got to learn to see the labyrinth. You've got to learn to identify. You've got to learn to see the stuff that all the weirdos like me and the few other people that you know see and try to explain to you, and your eyes gloss over and you start hearing a Lady Gaga song in your mind. How many times do you want to go round and round? How's this labyrinth life working for you so far? Do you want to keep going, or do you want to find a way out of the labyrinth? It's up to you. That's why we need to train ourselves to feel, sense, and be aware of ourselves and our environment, not to enhance our sex lives or personality. What is he talking about, a sex life? But to be sensitive to change on a much deeper level than the organic mind and its primate level senses and values. I would say the reptilian level senses and values. It's also a good idea to establish a new imagery for our voyage in the labyrinth. We can't depend on a sudden increase in our sensitivity to small and subtle series of changes in the environment, because it probably won't happen. You can't fix your analytical mind after you've left this body. You got to do it now, and you're not going to magically get what you need. I know that Doreen Lack of Virtue wants to tell you that you'll get what you need when you need it, because all these wonderful unicorns and rainbows are going to make it so easy for you. She's a fraud, and so is that thinking fraudulent. It isn't even necessary to understand the readings, the things that we'll go through with you when you start doing this with me beginning October 1st. If understanding comes, great, but the reading will reach the part of the person that's actually going into the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth, and in that state, understanding comes naturally. So when you're working with me in the future on this, being ready to navigate the afterlife state and get out of the labyrinth and go to your next destination, I'll be saying things to you and sharing things with you, and you'll be hearing things that may not make any sense to your analytical being up here. Your reactive mind will want to jump up and say, oh, it's silly, this is stupid, why are you doing this? But what you have to understand is that it's that deep part of your analytical mind, that's your spirit or your soul, whatever you want to call it. I look at it as spirit, but that's me. It will hear, it will understand, it will remember. And you know how they say, let your conscience be your guide? Let your analytical mind be your guide, and it will be your guide when you leave this plane, this part of the labyrinth. Wow, that's good stuff. Read this at every opportunity, and where it's disallowed or outlawed as religious trash by fanatics who would like to martyr every being and thus trap all beings in the organic human sector, then learn this method by heart and pass it on verbatim on an oral initiatory basis. There are a group of people, and there is a cabal that's trying to keep this information from you. So your responsibility is to hear it, and then your responsibility is to commit it to memory, and then your responsibility is to pass it on to other people. Cultivation of the fine art of dying. How about that? Cultivation of the fine art of dying requires great inner discipline, and for a population that doesn't even know about the macro dimensions or inner discipline, it's almost impossible to introduce. In a culture which has a taboo against knowing about death, even on an ordinary organic level, it's going to take some doing. We don't talk about death. We don't think about death. We don't look at death. We don't understand death. We hate death. And yet death is a part of life. Death is really a graduation ceremony. And this is going to be some of the hardest learning you've ever done, because it goes against that which creates the cognitive dissonance in you. And if you tell other people what you're doing, it's just going to make it worse. Something very little known in the East, and definitely unknown in the West, is that the voyage in the labyrinth continues all the time. The labyrinth underlies the organic world. The vibrations of the macro dimensions of the labyrinth are dominated by the organic vibrations, which are heavier and easier to sense through biological machinery and human awareness than the direct but more subtle perceptions of the dimensional domains. We're not going to be able to go through this whole chapter. It's a long one. Another fact, and I might end with this. You can enter and leave the macro dimensions of the labyrinth at any time for periods of seconds, hours, or even years, up to eternities, and experience rebirth, not necessarily at an infant biological machine. You can be reborn at any time into any size, shape, and age biological machine. Your subjective experience, unless you've had training and feeling and sensing, is as if nothing unusual had happened. All the experiences in the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth tend to go unnoticed, and you may take subtle rebirth without knowledge or control. However, once in a biological machine, you insist that these are your memories, your interests, and that you have always had that biological machine. After all, if you had been in the macro-dimensional domains of the labyrinth and had been reborn into the present dimensions, you'd know that, wouldn't you? The ordinary individual changes habitation in each of the 6 lower tertiary dimensions without realizing it, anywhere from 4 to 5 times to hundreds of times every few days. Try explaining that to someone who couldn't tell you what's been going on for the last minute and a half. So all these things that I've been talking to you about, being 3 feet behind your head, accessing yourself across other dimensionalities. It's deep water, and not all of you can swim. And sadly, not even all of you want to learn to swim. Warning. Don't reach out trying to help those who don't want help. Help by quietly reading the labyrinth instructions out of earshot and out of sight. If they catch you helping them, they'll tar and feather you and run you out of town on a rail. That's a wooden post used for rural fencing, not the steel kind for locomotives. Just a human way of saying, thanks. Wow. Wow. I'd love to keep going, but this is such deep stuff. We need to keep it in manageable little bites, manageable little bite-sized pieces. Wow. Somebody's blowing up my phone. It's probably my mother. Lots of people, lots of questions. Thank you. Make your mom mad and the storm won't be your problem. I don't think it's going to do what they're predicting, says Rocker Chick. I'm still saying, Irma, calm down. Yes. My hair is looking darker. I'm not sure why. Take pictures of your orbs, Sassy Susie says. We're not the pinnacle of modern society. We just think we are. He was about to make another tarot video, but the world stops. Ha ha ha. From what I've learned in the last year, the U.S. is not the country I thought it was. Tamu, we have to do our new tarot series. I kind of got lost on that. We need to make sure we do it every week at least. For all of our advancements, we are further away from spirit. See a vision, be a vision, make a vision, not tell lie vision. Peyote, why? Peyote, see? Peyote's not going to help you in the afterlife. Peyote's not going to give you the instructions for navigating the afterlife life. My spirit animal. It's all about programming. Yes, absolutely. Medicine cards are animal totems. Look further into turtles. Find out what about them attracts you. That's interesting. A mother and fawn were directly in someone's yard. That's nice. I'm kind of hippie. Rio Linda. Rush Limbaugh's favorite place. I love watching the birds that sit on the phone lines. Yep. Meditating on a regular basis will help us come out of the labyrinth. Yes, it will. Trauma and PTSD can cause glitches, and they can be fixed. Recovering soul. Helping others is important, yes. Hello, Denise. I can't find a regular therapist who helps with trauma. Black cats are lucky. Lady Gaga. Rocker Chick, Tamu and Gina, Fairy Dust, Sparkles, Unicorns. Whole rack of Doreen lack of virtue cards, a Jesus deck. That's hilarious. Is the labyrinth the Matrix? Yes. I'll bet the movie The Matrix was made about the labyrinth. Death is not difficult. We've been trained to think it's difficult. Matthew Summers wants a session with Jeffrey. Okay, then Matthew Summers should contact me. Jeff, do you know how to get out of the Matrix? Yes. That's why I'm teaching you how to, and we're going to start teaching people on a one-on-one basis because that's where it's most effective. So there you go. That's all the questions that were in the chat room. I am starting to hear a little bit more wind outside. So after the show tomorrow, I will definitely be heading over to my mother's house, 35 or so feet above sea level, which is a mountaintop in the state of Florida. That's the whole point, music heals me, that you don't want to allow your mind to be wiped. Monday might be okay, Jen. Let me ponder on that one. There's a lot of stuff we need to learn. There's a lot of stuff we need to learn. Cross over and run like hell to the back. That's funny. All right, folks. Any last minute questions here? All right, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your Christian whistleblower. Here bringing you the gospel truth about the Western Book of the Dead, how to learn how to navigate the higher levels of the labyrinth after death before you die, because now's when you need to learn it. You can't learn it after you die. You're going to have to learn at some point if you ever want to get out of this labyrinth. So if not now, when? What are you waiting for? Are you having so much fun going round and round on this wheel? It's really not that great. Do yourself a favor. Learn how to leave this labyrinth. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, saluting all of you that are here seeking truth. Remember, you don't have original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. That's why the Christ said, love you. Love the divinity in you. Love the divinity in your neighbor. That's why he said that on those two things hangs everything else in the message of the Christ. And as soon as we learn to be excellent to ourselves and to be excellent to each other, then we'll know that we truly are following the message of the Christ. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. We'll see you again real soon.